most aches and pains where you wake up and you're like, oh, my back is sore, my back's been bugging me, but there was no event, right? Is usually something's going on soft tissue. You're just so weak that your body is unable to find stability. Like it's a mess. Like you can sleep wrong at night and you wake up and you're a mess for like 3 weeks. If you get strong, that stuff goes away.
I feel like I'm getting roasted. What was the snatch again? I'm sorry.
That's good. Hello and welcome back to Healthiest. I'm here with my good friend Wes, and we're going to go over some fitness nerd stuff today. I think it's going to be super fun. So stick around. We're going to talk about strength training. We're going to talk about weight loss. We're going to talk about nutrition. We're going to talk about sleep, maybe, if we get to it.
We'll be talking about fitness.
One of my favorite topics. So without further ado, first thing I'd like to just check in with you, because if you watched the last episode, you probably know that Wes is on this journey of getting himself back into good shape. Is you kind of let yourself go a little bit.
A lot
of
it.
Yeah. And now you're clawing your way back.
Yep. The goal was 5 pounds and I lost like half a pound.
You lost a half a pound?
Yeah.
You mean in the week?
Yeah, in a week.
All right.
So
that's cool.
I don't know if that's a lot. Back when I was in shape, that would have been nothing. Like it was, but I haven't had any sugar this week.
And it's progress.
That was good. Yeah, but I did overeat a little bit, but not bad food, just a lot of food.
Yeah.
A few times. So, but I've done 3 workouts every other day. The first 2 days were unbelievable how sore I was.
Yeah.
So
so you were doing workouts. Were you still getting up at 5 a.m?
No, that was just that one time. So, but then I was really sore for 2 days, so I couldn't do anything. And then the next day I was able to work out. And then the next day I felt okay. So,
well, that's good news.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of guys when they first start off, and maybe you've been there before, but like you start off working out and you just go all in, and then you tend to be sore for like 3 or 4 days, and then stop going to the gym for a while. And then it's hard to kind of get that energy to pick it back up again.
Yeah, because I was nervous the second time that I was going to be sore for another 2 days. But the second day I wasn't even sore really. So it was just that one time to get through it. And then once I started doing weights again, I'm sure it'll be similar.
Oh yeah, because you're doing more just like cardio stuff.
Yeah. Kind of. I do that like a 12-minute HIIT workout. So it's got some cardio mixed with some strength training a little bit.
Gotcha.
So like a few push-ups and stuff like that. A lot of legs.
Perfect.
So
and I think that probably transitions us into the first topic, which I think is really important for a lot of guys to understand. Is like let's just kind of back it up a little bit, and like, what do you consider it to be fit? Like when you call yourself fit, like what does that mean for you?
For me, I think it would mean that I feel strong. I can run without feeling like I'm going to have a heart attack after 5 minutes. The belly's not hanging over my belt, which is currently a problem.
Yeah, that was to slow you down, right?
Yeah.
Slow you down dramatically.
Like I tried to do some yoga and I couldn't do the stretches, and I was like, I think that's because my belly's in the way and not so much the flexibility, So that would be...
There's like an obstruction, a legit obstruction.
Yeah, for sure. It's really, So, but I don't know. Like, I think the way I like to think about it is like, if I was in a survival situation, would I have a chance? Like if somebody was chasing me or something, would I be able to get away and not just be like, all right, fuck this, let them take it.
Yeah. So I think like real world fitness, like one of the things that we all need to be able to do, or we all should be able to do as humans, is like freaking run.
Yeah.
Right. Like to your point, like survival, like back in the day, and even today, I would argue a lot of what we need to do if we want to escape danger is we got to be able to move our body. We got to get away.
You have to be able to have a flight response.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And you can have it in your brain, but if you don't have it in your body and you run for 2 minutes and you're done, that can be a problem. And I do a lot of hiking, and I always worry about being in the woods and, coming up to a bear.
Yeah.
Even being in great shape, I'm not sure I'd get away from a bear.
They're pretty fast.
That's what I hear. Yeah.
They're kind of skittish around here though.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So I think running is really good. And I would consider that to be kind of on the conditioning end, right? So if we want to condition someone's body, we want to elevate their heart rate, we want to elevate their respirations, and we want to do something that's going to be conducive to everyday life. right? Something that has a pretty significant amount of carryover. So, whenever I program conditioning routines, I do use running in all different distances, all different time domains in my programming, because I feel like it's just such a valuable thing for people to have, to be able to do.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Even though I hate running so much.
Yeah, most people do.
I do. That's my least favorite thing to do when I'm working out.
Have you been doing it at all?
No,
Have you been doing it
just the thing. I'm sure I do have the desire to like go on a jog, take the dog out and like do that. But
have you been a runner before? Like, have you never? So
never.
Like,
I've never.
What's the furthest you ever ran?
I mean,
Adult.
Like on the treadmill?
Wherever.
Yeah. I mean, I used to do like 3 miles. I would do 3 miles at a time. I'm sure I've done more.
Okay.
I've probably done like 8 or 9 on like a crazy day or for some reason, but that would be the longest at a slow pace,
Yeah.
In high school, I ran a 6-minute mile once.
Really? That's really fast.
It was 6:01.
Nice.
So we had kids in our class that would run like a 4.5-minute mile.
It's getting crazy fast.
Yeah.
I mean, there's high school kids. There's a bunch of high school kids right now running over 4 minute miles.
No kidding.
It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. But it's okay. So you've been there before, so you understand what it's like.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't like doing it. I kind of look at it like it's one of those things you kind of have to do. It's like taking your medicine. I don't do it very often because, quite honestly, I don't like running that much either. And I call it the skinny kid curse, because I'm not a big dude by any means. So whenever I see someone, they're like, oh, they just assume automatically that I'm a runner.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're always like, oh, you're a runner, right? And I'm like, I actually hate running. I actually like lifting weights. And they're like, you don't look like you lift weights.
Okay. What a runner's high? I've heard of this.
Yeah.
Never ever found it. Nope. Yeah. Have you ever gotten one?
Yeah. Interestingly, I don't get it. Well, I guess I kind of do, because anytime I do a workout nowadays, if I'm doing running, it's usually not just running. It'll be a part of my conditioning,
okay,
but it'll never be the exclusive part.
Yeah.
Like, I never just go out for a 3 mile run. Like, I could, but I don't like it. Usually I'll do something like, I'll add in like a 1/4 mile run. So I'll run a 1/4 mile, then I'll come back and then I'll do something else like pull-ups or burpees or push-ups or whatever. And I'll mix the running in. And when I do that kind of mixture of lots of different activity, after about 10 minutes of working at a really high intensity, 10 minutes or later, then I'll get that runner's high once the workout is over.
So 10 minutes of running until you get it? Is that what you're saying?
10 minutes of working really hard.
Okay.
So if I work really hard for 10 minutes or more,
then you can get a runner's high just doing those kind of workouts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's more of like an intensity kind of thing where I get it.
Okay.
If I work at a high enough intensity, I'll get that runner's high where you just sort of feel euphoric.
Yeah, I've never happened.
Yeah.
No.
I know a lot
Kayla
of
used to tell me about it. She would get it.
Yeah.
And like, to me, it was always, this, what do you call it? Like I don't know.
Yeah. The pie in the sky.
The uniform. Or,
yeah.
Unicorn or Bigfoot or something.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing though. And if you've experienced it before, like, it really is a feeling of euphoria.
Yeah. Tell us about it in the comments. We'd love to hear it.
Yeah. It's just, you gotta work for it though. You don't get it.
Yeah.
You gotta, like, I have to push myself to a certain intensity to have that. If I just dog it, I don't really get it.
Yeah.
So I gotta push.
Yeah. You gotta.
And it doesn't really last very long, at least not for me.
Really?
It could be just maybe 3 or 4 minutes and it's gone. But there's a tremendous up. But, the conditioning end too, running is such an important part of it. But I am trying to figure out what does it mean to have great endurance, right? Like, running is something that we can all kind of wrap our heads around because it's something that we all need to be able to do as humans, right? But it's much bigger than that. So what does it mean to have great endurance? Because I know a lot of runners, or at least I've worked with a lot of runners who have been tremendous athletes just in that single sport. Like, they're a great marathon runner, or they're a great 5K runner, right? A great miler, or even a great sprinter. But if you test them on other things, they're not so good.
Okay.
So yeah, like for me, like I always go back to like basketball practices in high school. Like my dad was the coach and he was really pushed us. And so you had to have, you had to have endurance to make it through one of those practices.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a good thing, but I've never tried a marathon.
Yeah.
Do you ever run a marathon?
I did a half marathon, and I swore I would never run that far ever
No
again.
kidding, really.
Yeah.
How far is a half marathon?
uh, uh, 13, 13.1 miles.
Oh my God, that's a half?
Yeah. Marathon's 26.2.
Never going to happen.
Yeah. It was awful. It was awful. But it was many, many years ago when I was into like a lot of drinking a lot of alcohol. Yeah, and eating a lot of really bad food. I was carrying about maybe 20 pounds more than
Really?
Yeah. So it wasn't pretty. I wasn't training for that style. But endurance, if it's again, like if we look at like Lance Armstrong was a tremendous biker, right? Obviously. He had a great VO2 max, like if you tested him. But when he stopped biking, he had a stint where he was doing some marathons.
Okay.
And now I think he's even doing like some high rocks running. Some high rocks is kind of like a sport that's out there nowadays. It's like the sport of fitness sort of, and running is a big component of it. But he was never a great runner. He was never a great triathlete. Like he was not a world-class athlete. So when we talk about endurance, because of that, would you say that he doesn't have great endurance? No. So what does endurance generally mean?
Yeah, I guess you can endure.
Yeah. It's true.
Mean, you can go for a long time without giving up. I don't know. That's how I picture it.
Yeah.
Like, have you heard of that guy that can literally run forever?
No.
I watched a show. I wanted to say it was called like Stanley Superhumans or something. It was a documentary series, but there was this guy. He realized that the longer he found out when he was like 30, on his 30th birthday, decided to run home after he was like wasted drunk. And he's like, the longer he ran,
sounds like Forrest Gump.
Yeah. It was like the longer he ran, the better he felt.
Wow.
And they tested him. And I want to say some kind of acids or proteins or something that's involved in that. Do you know? Like, it's like you run low on them and then your endurance goes down.
So much of being able to run long distance has to do with the energy. It has to do with intensity.
Okay.
If you're at a really, really low intensity, your block is generally going to be the energy that you have. So that's why like a lot of long distance runners, they have to eat because you could bonk, meaning you run out of carbohydrates.
Okay.
So if you're running at a low intensity, which I'm guessing he was.
Yeah, like marathon style.
Yeah. If it's a very low intensity.
I want to say like ran from like San Francisco to LA or something crazy.
Yeah. So the thing that would probably slow him down, besides obviously the beating on the joints, like that's a big thing too, and like tearing up your feet and stuff like that. But you have to make sure that you're eating throughout because otherwise you will bonk and you'll literally just have to stop. You can't.
We should probably fact check anything that I say because I like the idea of things, but sometimes I get the details wrong.
Yeah, but I mean that's. I think you're on track though.
Yeah. Anyway, it was crazy, but apparently he could there was some anomaly that he had in his body that allowed him to literally run forever.
Yeah.
So
there is something like if you've heard of like type 1 muscle fibers and type 2 muscle fibers. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
So there's different kinds of muscle fibers in your body, and the type 2 muscle fibers they call them the fast twitch muscle fibers.
Okay.
So like someone that has a high percentage of fast twitch muscle fibers genetically are kind of blessed to be able to do the things that are very explosive, like sprinters, high jumpers, pole vaulters, some short distance weightlifters, right? Some short duration activity that requires a tremendous amount of power.
Okay.
So what they used to do back in the day, like the Eastern Bloc countries would test their kids when the kids were really young to see what their makeup was of their muscles. Yeah. And if they were type 2, they would put them in a sport that was geared towards high intensity. If you're someone who's got a predominantly type 1 muscle fibers, those are the endurance muscle fibers.
I think that's what I have probably.
It could be. Most people.
I was never very quick.
Statistically, most people are 50-50.
Really?
Yeah. So you have to be kind of an outlier to have, a tremendous amount of one or the other. Somebody like Lance Armstrong is genetically blessed.
Yeah.
And that's one of the ways that he is genetically blessed. He has a very high percentage of type 1 muscle fibers as opposed to type 2.
Oh.
But that's also why Lance Armstrong he would never be a world-class weightlifter.
What about and he was doing like the steroids too, right?
Yeah.
Did he do that only after he was sick or did he do it all throughout his career? Do we know?
I'm not really sure. I'm pretty sure it was after he was sick.
Okay.
Because he sort of thought, I've seen multiple interviews with him, but he sort of thought that it wasn't fair that he only had one testicle and was only making, enough for testosterone compared to the other guys. So that was one of his justifications.
Really?
Yeah. And he even says it, but whatever. I mean, whatever you think of him, the guy was a tremendously hard worker.
Yeah.
And he was genetically blessed. But if you're genetically blessed and you're willing to put in the work like that guy was, because he was obsessed with cycling, you can't be stopped.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I think that goes for any athlete.
Yeah.
At the highest of levels, you have to have like this level of obsession that's almost unhealthy.
Speaking of healthy or unhealthy, how would you relate fitness to healthiness, being healthy?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I think before we even get into that, like let's back up a little bit and let's go back into like fitness, because we kind of touched on the cardio end of it, but there's more to fitness than just being cardio ready. There's more to it than just having great endurance, right? You have to have that, but there's other components as well. And where I was trying to kind of lead this and try to go with this, and I didn't do a great job of it, but it's like we've got these people who are tremendous cardio athletes like Lance Armstrong, or pick your favorite triathlete or whatever. They're really, really good at these long distance events.
Just out of curiosity, do you have a favorite triathlete?
No, I have no idea.
Okay, I was just making
no idea who's doing it now.
That'd be funny. Like there's like trade cards,
Yeah. I mean, there's so many. The triathlete community is huge.
Really?
Yeah, it's quite massive. If you remember, there's a guy named Mark Allen many years ago. I used to think that guy was the fittest human being on the planet.
Really? Which
is really interesting, because I think a lot of people still have this thinking in their mind, but mostly because people don't really think about this stuff like I do. Like if you had to pick the fittest person in the world, who would that be? A lot of people would consider that the triathlete. Yeah. That would be one of the things that pops in most people's heads.
Really?
Yeah. But if I had asked you that, like, what would you say? Like,
you?
Me? How about that? There's a lot of people out there that could whoop my ass though.
Tell us who you think is the fittest person in the world in the comments.
Yeah. And, with fitness, obviously, again, going back to like cardio is a big part of it. But it's not the only thing. And if you only train at one specific thing, like let's say you're only a runner, you might not be very good on the bike. You might not be very good at doing all kinds of other stuff, like working in the yard, digging holes.
Rowing.
Yeah. Anything that elevates your heart rate and respirations for extended periods of time is what cardio is.
Okay.
So if you want to be really good at, I call it the sport of life. And that's kind of what we're playing as like guys over 40, because we're not really playing sports anymore, not structured sports like we used to. I mean, some are, but most aren't. So we have to play the sport of life. So I think it's really important to not specialize in any one thing. So I don't want any of my trainees to be just runners. I don't want any of my trainees to just be a biker. I want them to literally have capacity to be able to do all of those things.
What did you say to me one time? You said like you treat it as like the body's like one whole muscle or something like that.
Yeah, it's like one giant muscle.
Right? Yeah.
So if we extend this out now, so we've got cardio as a component of your fitness. This kind of ties into like another component of fitness, which is being strong.
Strength.
Yeah, okay. Right. So you can have great endurance, but what I found is most great endurance athletes, and I'll say 99% of them, are very, very weak. Meaning if I get them on a squat rack and I have them try to squat their body weight, even like really, really good runners, really, really good bikers, you name it, they're not very competent.
Okay.
Usually we can get them ramped up pretty quickly, but they're missing that component of their performance. And if I get a great endurance athlete to come in and I start making them stronger, guess what happens to their performance on the track or on the road?
Gets better.
Gets so much better. Yeah. So another big component of being fit would be just to be strong.
Okay. How many is there a known, like how many things are there to fitness? Or, I mean, could you be like, there's 5 keys to fitness, or, what would you say?
Yeah. So we got 2 so far.
2.
Yeah. We got endurance, we got strength. And going back to strength, we were talking about like the body is one muscle. Mm-hmm. So you've got some different camps in the strength area. Okay. You've got the bodybuilders, right, who are primarily aesthetic driven, right?
Yes.
The bodybuilders kind of started back with Arnold Schwarzenegger back in the day, right? So he made that super popular, and then there was that whole kind of following, and it's alive and well to this day. But what a bodybuilder does is they take the body and they break it down into a bunch of individual muscle groups. And then they come up with exercises to work on those specific muscles, right? So I might spend a whole day just working on biceps and triceps.
Yeah.
Right? I could literally spend 3 hours just beating up those muscles, right? With the intention of hopefully making them grow a little bit bigger.
Right.
Right. So nothing necessarily wrong with that. If that's what you're trying to do, there's some value there. But if you're trying to play the sport of life, which is again, what we're trying to do as men over 40, we want to treat the human body not as a bunch of individual muscles, but as one giant muscle.
Okay.
Toenails to fingernails. Everything needs to be able to work together as a unit for us to be able to perform really well in everyday life. So very different. Bodybuilding training is almost like dumbing the system down a little bit. One of the things that makes me crazy about bodybuilders is you're sitting down most of the time, right? There's not a lot of standing exercises. If, for example, like the bicep curl, they've got that bicep curl machine at the gym. And what do? You sit down, adjust the seat. Right?
Yep.
Put your arms over that pad.
Yeah.
So you're all kind of secured and locked in, and then you just isolate, right? That one joint.
Yeah.
The only thing moving is that joint. Are you working your bicep? 100%. But everything else is kind of shut down, right? So if we're trying to train for performance, the sport of life, we want to build strength, toenails to fingernails, treat the body as one giant muscle.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. So we've got endurance, do all kinds of different stuff, be good at everything. We've got strength, train your body, toenails to fingernails. There's lots of different ways to do that. And then the third component, like where the rubber hits the road of fitness, is power.
Power. Okay.
Yeah. Power is a combination of strength and speed.
Okay.
So in order to really train power, you want to have a good component of strength first, like a foundation of strength first, and then you can start to become fast. And power is like the currency of athletes.
Okay.
Yeah, with most athletics, the most powerful people are the superior performers.
Yeah.
With most sports, not all, but most. So there's different exercises that you can do to specifically, and let's just use this. A very powerful person can move large loads, long distances quickly.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Move large loads, long distances, and quickly. Those are the most powerful humans. And you can measure that. So we can determine who can generate the most horsepower just by looking at those numbers.
Wow. So how would you work on getting more powerful?
Yeah, it's working on exercises that allow you to move the most amount of weight,
Okay.
the biggest of distance, in the shortest amount of time. The most powerful people in the world, if you've ever seen the sport of weightlifting, and a lot of people, when you say weightlifting, they just automatically think of like picking up the dumbbells at the gym and moving some dumbbells around. There's an actual sport of weightlifting. And you can just look up USA weightlifting. It's an Olympic sport, and there's 2 contested lifts. There's the clean and jerk and the snatch.
Both sound pretty dirty.
Yeah, so true. Yeah. So mind out of the gutter. What fun is that?
Describe them.
Yeah. Yeah. The clean and jerk, you have a barbell, a loaded barbell on the floor, and you have to take it from the floor in one continuous movement to the shoulders. And then you got to take it from the shoulders into an overhead position.
Okay.
Right. The snatch is one continuous movement from the floor all the way into an overhead position.
Sorry, I can't get my mic.
Yeah. I know. Who comes up with these names, right?
I don't know. Somebody would be fitting this clean jerk in your snatch. All right. So what was the snatch again? I'm sorry.
What was the snatch again? I'm sorry. Yeah. We're talking about exercise, right?
Right.
We're talking about exercise?
Yeah, I thought
Okay.
so.
I get mixed up once in a while with all these words.
It's our After Dark podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. Stay tuned. Well, that's coming up after this. Bonus material.
Yeah.
The snatch is barbell on the floor,
Okay.
right? Weights on it.
Mm-hmm.
One continuous movement from the floor all the way overhead.
Okay.
And you have to stand up with it overhead under control.
Do you have any idea what the difference in weight
Yeah.
for the records are?
Like the heavyweights, there's weight classes.
Yeah, I imagine the snatch would be a lower weight.
You're exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah. With the clean, you get to stop at the shoulders.
Yeah. So how, like an Olympic jerker, how
We're like children.
much weight do you think they would be working with there?
Yeah. I think the world record in the clean and jerk, and again, heavyweight, so the biggest people move the biggest weights, somewhere around 600 pounds now.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, insane.
Wow.
Like taking, You're literally throwing 600 pounds, taking it from the floor, throwing it onto your shoulders, standing up with it, and then throwing it over your head.
How much do these people weigh?
3 like heavyweights. There's some big dudes out there right now.
Jeez, man.
I want to say the biggest guy is probably over 3. You have to check me on that. I'm not sure, but I think he's from Russia, but he's got some world records. He's insane, just insane.
And then what's like the heaviest snatch? Trying to say what that was.
I'm going to say it's probably over 400.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Just to throw it in one motion.
One motion from the floor into the overhead position. Yeah.
What's your do you ever do that?
Yeah. I used to compete, actually.
What was your best?
I could snatch 205 and I could clean and jerk 235.
That's pretty amazing.
If you're in the world of weightlifting, it's not that amazing.
Oh, I forgot we were talking about weightlifting.
Bada bum.
Okay. Are there any other components to fitness?
Well, here's the thing, right? So we know that the most powerful humans in the world are the clean and jerkers or the snatchers.
Of course.
So if we can agree that those are the most powerful people, how do we know? They move the largest loads, the longest distance, the fastest.
Okay.
Right. So 500 pounds, 400 plus pounds, insane. The amount of distance they're covering with their body is tremendous, right?
Are these like people that would compete in those world's strongest men contests? Or
No, very different.
Okay.
Yeah, very different.
The
beauty of the sport of weightlifting is you're using a precision instrument, the barbell.
Okay.
You can always move more weight with a barbell because it's this precision instrument. The strong men are interesting because they move a lot of odd objects, but they're fast, but they're never as heavy as a bar.
Okay.
So the stuff that you see in the world's strongest man, if they can pick up like one of those big Atlas stones that's 500 pounds and set it up on something, there's a good chance they can deadlift 700 pounds.
Oh, okay.
So they're training with 700 pound barbells to lift that
awkward
500 pound stone. Yeah. So the value of the barbell is just, again, it's this precision instrument because we can load a tremendous amount of weight onto that bar and you can keep the bar right on the middle of your foot as you're doing your movements. If you imagine your feet are like your foundation, right? Like a building has a structure and the building has a foundation. The foundation of your body is your feet.
Okay.
And if the center of mass is too far forward, you're going to be on your toes. If the center of mass is too far back, you're going to be on your heels. So you always want to stay centered. With the barbell, you can put a tremendous amount of weight on it. You can keep that bar right over the middle of the foot.
Okay.
So when you're doing something like a clean and jerk and the snatch, you want to keep it on the middle of your foot.
On the center.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you see that the efficiency of that movement and what they're trying to do is they're trying to keep the bar like right on that line.
Okay.
Right. Where a strongman has to kind of like, there's just no efficiency there.
Yeah.
Right. Because they got that big ball and it's
you're trying to
forward and lean back. Yeah. And there's just it's just hard to get stable.
How do those guys do that without having like I feel like if I did anything like that, my back would be out for like a year.
They're just super strong.
Yeah.
Yeah. So going back to like strength, the strongest people in the world are the strong men, but you're actually not seeing them lift the heaviest of weights in those strongman competitions, right? They're training differently. I mean, they still train with those things, but the strongest people in the world are the power lifters.
Okay.
The power lifters are the guys that compete in, there's 3 contested lifts. There's the deadlift, the back squat.
What's that one?
It's where you got the bar on your back, you're squatting down and standing back up.
Okay.
The back squat. And then there's the bench press, which I don't like. The reason I don't like powerlifting is I don't like the bench press because you're laying down.
Oh, you don't like, because you like to.
If you're playing the sport of life and you're laying on your back, you got to get up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not that impressed by someone that can lay on their back and push a bunch of weight.
Yeah. If you're using if the bear's chasing you and you're laying on your back,
you're in a bad spot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there some value there? 100%. But I wouldn't put as much of my time and effort into training that. What I would rather do is see an standing overhead press.
Okay.
Right? So being able to stand up, brace your system, stay centered, and then push a bar over your head. Right? Somebody that's got like a 300-pound strict overhead press, I'm way more impressed than laying on your back and bench pressing 400.
Yeah.
It's just a whole nother animal. That person is like super strong. Toenails and fingernails. So if we know that, then So if we know what develops the strongest humans in the world, because like a power lifter in the deadlift, the world record is like 1,200 pounds, like lifting 1,200 pounds from the floor.
And what is that? What, just standing and
with a
so
barbell?
you're-
Yeah, you just stand up with it, so it's
Okay.
bars at your waist. Just arms long, arms are like ropes. So you just stand up with it. Like, can you imagine 1,200
That's
pounds? Yeah. The squat, I think, is over 1,000 pounds. It might even be pretty close to the deadlift. So it's somewhere like 1,100 pounds, I think, the world record.
Wow.
I'm not sure what the bench is because I don't really follow it that much. But so we know what creates the strongest humans in the world. We know what creates the most powerful humans in the world. So if you're someone who's over 40 and you're playing the sport of life and you're interested in training toenails to fingernails, making the whole system strong, then you want to focus your efforts on those lifts. If you can master those lifts, if you can master how to use that barbell, you can become one of the strongest, most powerful humans on the planet just by focusing your effort on that.
And then so is that like, to get to that point, is that helping every other aspect of your fitness?
Yeah, 100%. Like if you think like if you watch somebody do a heavy deadlift, right?
Yeah.
And heavy's relative, right? If you're someone who's brand new, maybe you're just learning it, 100 pounds could be really heavy. But if you're lifting 100 pounds from the floor and you're doing it really well, one of the questions I always ask that people ask me sometimes, people who are a little bit newer to exercise, they'll say like, what muscles is this working? I think that's a pretty normal question for people that aren't into fitness, right? And I say, I challenge you to figure out what muscle it's not working.
Okay.
And when you think about it, you're like, yeah, like to lift something heavy off the floor, everything has to do something. Every single, from your toenails to your fingernails, everything has to do something. So we're strengthening the entire system.
Okay.
And if you know what you're doing, we're also building the nervous system, right? We're learning a skill of how to lift something safely and efficiently from the floor, how to organize your spine, how to hinge at the hip. Like there's all these kind of fundamental things that will be valuable for you in your everyday life and keep you really safe, quite honestly. And the stronger you get, the more bulletproof you become.
I like it.
Yeah. I call it the threshold of damage. The stronger you get, the higher that threshold of damage becomes.
So if you were me,
Yeah.
and you're trying to get back in shape,
Yeah.
get that fitness,
Yeah.
what would you do?
Yeah.
Like in my position where I like gained a bunch, 40 pounds, and
Yeah.
I want to lose it all and get back to my strongness, but not, so my back doesn't hurt and all that stuff.
Yeah.
What would you do?
We've got a couple things here. We've got weight loss, which I know is a big goal for you, right? How much weight do you want to lose?
I'd like to get down to 175 again.
Okay.
So, 35 pounds?
Okay, cool. So you got 35 pounds to lose. Obviously you have to build up your fitness.
34 and a half.
34 and a half. Yeah, that's important.
I lost that half.
Yeah. So that would be, I would consider that to be separate from your fitness.
Okay.
So a lot of people, when they want to lose weight, they want to get fit, a lot of times they're talking about weight loss.
Okay.
Right. And a lot of times, we talked about this last time, but going to the gym is one of the strategies that a lot of people use to lose weight.
Yes.
But what I found is going to the gym and exercising your ass off does not mean you're going to lose weight. In fact, you can become incredibly fit and get fatter.
Okay.
So the key piece here is to kind of separate your fitness from your weight loss goals.
So it doesn't mean fitness into these jeans again.
Yes, right.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And you probably know where I'm going with this, but if you want to lose weight, like what is the primary tool for that job?
Your diet.
100%. Yeah. Like you got to eat good.
I'm like the worst person at guessing what you're going to like. So I'm trying to get better at it.
Oh shit. You asked me a question.
No, I am. People will be like, that could be the simplest thing. And then I'll be like, I don't know what you're looking for. But
Yeah. Well, I think you put somebody on the spot too, right? You're like, oh shit. Like,
no, it's so funny. I feel like such an idiot.
but you nailed it, man. You
I
got
know,
it.
I had to say something about it. That's how rare that is. So.
Yeah. But you nailed it.
Diet.
So
All right.
diet is your tool for weight loss.
Okay.
Right. But if you want to get fit, like if somebody comes to me and says, I want to get in better shape, I have to be careful because I separate those two in my mind.
Yeah.
Right. But I know that a lot of people just mean they want to lose weight. Right.
So does diet even play into fitness?
It does at a certain level. So when I'm trying to make someone fit, I'm trying to improve their overall performance.
Gotcha.
I want them stronger, more powerful, and have better endurance, right? That just means they can dominate all physical tasks in life. So there is a limit. Like if you're really overweight, I can get you a lot stronger than maybe where you start from without losing any weight. I can get you like really strong, right? There's a lot of fat guys out there that lift,
yeah.
like the guys that are the power lifters, they got big bellies and stuff. They're just huge, right?
Yeah.
And they're just straining as shit.
Yeah.
For Olympic style weightlifting, if you want to be very powerful, it doesn't pay to have a bunch of extra weight, right? So it's going to significantly reduce the level of performance that you have. It could significantly reduce the level of performance that you have.
Okay.
Right. And then endurance, obviously carrying a bunch of extra weight, I can give you better endurance, but you're never going to hit your potentials.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're carrying 30 extra pounds, if you're running a 7-minute mile with 30 extra pounds, which there's a lot of really good runners who are overweight, you lose that. What's going to happen to your run times, or to your conditioning?
Much quicker.
Yeah. Like your performance is going to go up. Right. So there's an optimal level of body fat, muscle tissue, all that kind of stuff to perform optimally.
Okay.
And that's what we're looking for, right? So fitness is a great tool for performance, for getting fit. Shocker, right? Nutrition is a great tool for actually losing weight and getting healthy.
Yeah, it's funny because there was always synonymous to me, being fit would have been like,
Yeah.
That's interesting. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that drives me nuts is this belief in when someone sees a guy walking around who is ripped, shredded, 6-pack abs, veins in their arms, jack, whatever the word is you want to use, we automatically assume that person is very fit. And what I found is that a lot of those guys are really, on a performance level, don't perform very well at all.
Yeah.
Now, there are exceptions, right?
Like, would you say like a full-time bodybuilder, their endurance probably wouldn't be that high at all, would it?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, they're not going to the Olympics for weight. I mean, they're not great weightlifters. They don't have a lot of power. Yeah. Because a lot of the bodybuilding style training is done slow. But again, their goal is different. Right? Yeah. So we have to, not knocking bodybuilders. If that's your goal, I totally get it. It's nothing wrong with that. But I'm always looking for performance. Yeah. And I think with performance, and this kind of tracks back to your original question, was like, how do you associate fitness with health? Right. Here's the big idea. Your fitness is your health. Okay. Now, this is a not widely. A lot of people don't say that. A lot of people don't believe that. But if you really think about it, the only way that you're going to be a really high performer physically is if you're really, really healthy. If there is any deficiencies, any chinks in your armor when it comes to your health, it's going to negatively affect your performance. I can see that. Yeah. If there's any improvement in your health, your performance is going to improve. So your metric day by day is what is your physical capacity in any given day, and that is your optimal measure of health. Yeah. That makes sense? I never felt healthier than when I was fit. Yeah. And a question I like to ask people all the time is, who do you think is, because I asked you before, like, who's the fittest person in the world? Yeah. Right? So if I had asked you who's the healthiest person in the world, if you had to, it's subjective, but who would you say would be the healthiest person? Well, besides me. Because I am self-proclaimed the healthiest motherfucker on the planet. Self-proclaimed. Yes. Probably, I don't know. I mean, the healthiest. I don't know. I mean, like when you see someone, how do you determine, just subjectively again, like you walk by somebody where you get to know somebody and you're like, that person's really healthy. Yeah. Like, what are the distinctions for you? I mean, if they're in good shape. Yeah. They eat right. And that would show up as probably looking good. Yeah. You're not overweight. Right. Yeah. Like Brad Pitt in Fight Club. I don't know. Yeah. It's the shredded. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think you're on track. Like that's I think what most people would say. A lot of people, they look at leanness. Mm-hmm. How lean are you? But less is not always better. Right. If someone is shredded, it doesn't necessarily mean they're healthy. In fact, it could be unhealthy. Mm. There's an optimal when it comes to body fat. Yeah. Right. Lower is not better, just like higher is not better. There's what would you say? Optimal. What's optimal? It depends on the person. There's been a lot of like interesting studies and research done. And I think what I tend to lean into is it's built into your DNA. Some people are meant to carry a little bit more body fat than others. There's not just one number for everyone. Like every guy shouldn't be 5%. Every guy shouldn't be 8%. Everybody's going to be a little bit different.
Yeah.
How do you know? How do you optimize your performance? Where do you perform your absolute best? Right? With a combination of like having great endurance, having great strength, having great power. When you can balance all those things and maximize all of those things, that's what we're chasing. So what is the body fat for you to be able to maximize all of those things?
Okay.
That's what we're looking for. Again, not to be a specialist in any one of those things, but to optimize all of them.
I want to ask about something controversial.
Yes.
So what do you think about body positivity when it involves someone who might be morbidly obese? Because I see that a lot.
What do you mean? Like, I guess,
like I've seen,
expand on that. Okay.
I've seen like people promoting, hey, even though somebody might be overweight, like they're promoting that as like it's body positivity. So, like I don't know. I don't want to name any names, but I've seen like some famous people even like coming out and like, they don't wear a lot and then they like, but they're definitely out of shape.
Yeah. It's like Victoria's Secret hiring, or Sports Illustrated, right? Wasn't the last Sports Illustrated swimsuit model a bunch of fat chicks?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think it was. Check me on that, but I think it was. Then again, I could have been lied to too. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm not trying to get canceled or anything, but like, I'm just curious, like what your thoughts are. Because to me, it was like, I don't know. I never felt healthy when I was overweight.
Yeah.
Here's
kind of, this is my philosophical belief on this.
Okay.
You can do whatever the heck you want, right? You can believe whatever you want. I don't care if you want to eat like shit, you want to be overweight and fat and you think it's sexy. Awesome. Good for you. Right? Like I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
But if you want to be, if you're one of my family members or one of my good friends who I care about, I don't want you to be unhealthy, because I think we can all, or at least we should all, be honest with ourselves and understand that it's not healthy, right? Like I think I can factually come up with a pretty good argument that being overweight, especially morbidly obese, is very unhealthy.
Yeah.
So if you're someone that I care about and someone that I love, I'm going to say something. Nice. Because I don't want you to be sick.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe a little bit of selfish reasons. Like I want you around. Right. Like if my wife or if you or somebody becomes morbidly obese, I'm like, hey man, let's go to the gym. Let's get this fixed. Let's start eating better food.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not delusional.
Yeah. I like that. No, I was just curious.
Do whatever you want.
Curious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's your life.
Yeah.
I'm all about freedom.
I agree with that.
But man, if I care about you, I want the best for you. I want you to be healthy.
I like it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, now what? We've
Fitness.
got fitness and health.
Fitness. So I guess, did I answer your question about like, because I tend to sometimes go off on some tangents, but did I answer your question about like, what would I do for you, or what would I recommend for you, or what would I do if I was you? Maybe that was the question.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
How would you start out? Like, what kind of things would you do to, I guess, just tell me,
Yeah. Because of your goals, nutrition first.
Okay.
Clean things up. Right? We've talked about nutrition, but just getting you back to eating real food, like really focusing on meat, veggies, nuts, seeds, fruit, like eat from those categories.
Okay.
And that's what's going to help you to lose the weight. Right. So while you're doing that, also learning how to use a barbell.
Okay.
Yeah. Like learning the skills, like learn how to deadlift, learn how to squat, learn how to press, learn how to do a pull up, learn how to clean, learn how to do a snatch, learn how to do a jerk.
What was it called? A clean jerk?
Yeah. Clean jerk. Yeah. And there's ways to learn all of those things. I always teach it with a wooden stick, just to like learn the positions and kind of figure those out. But if you can learn those and you can build that foundation, then all you really need to stay incredibly strong and incredibly powerful is just a barbell and some weights.
Interesting.
It's super efficient. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then start doing some conditioning stuff. And I know we talked quite a bit about running. I think running is super valuable, but there's lots of different ways you can build your conditioning.
Okay.
Right. I wouldn't limit it to just running. I would try to do all kinds of different stuff. Anything that elevates your heart rate and respirations for extended periods of time is good.
What would you recommend to some, how long would you recommend somebody work out in a day?
I think you can easily get all of that stuff done under an hour. I'm going to say 45 minutes or less.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's just being really efficient.
Yeah.
But that's one of the beautiful things. One of the reasons I love the barbell so much is because you don't need to spend a lot of time on it. Like you spend one of your days in the week working on your deadlift, you spend one of your days working on a squat, you spend one of your days working on a press, right? And I mean, just by doing and focusing and developing that one movement, you can become literally world class.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Over time, the more you practice it.
Now, what concerns would there be? Like for me, when I think about this, I'm like, all right, but I have concerns about my back.
Yeah.
Because my back is kind of messed up, and sometimes it's better than others. And so what would you recommend in that circumstance? Like if you do it right, is that still a concern?
Yeah. You're not strong. That's the problem.
Okay.
For most people that have most aches and pains.
It's pretty harsh.
Yeah. You're not strong. Most people aren't. It's most aches and pains where you wake up and you're like, oh, my back is sore. My back's been bugging me, but there was no event, right? Is usually something's going on soft tissue. You're just so weak that your body is unable to find stability. Like it's a mess. Like you can sleep wrong at night and you wake up and you're a mess for like 3 weeks. If you get strong, that stuff goes away.
I feel like I'm getting roasted.
But I can't tell you like how many people, like if I just get them strong, all that stuff is gone.
Really?
It's gone. Yeah. I was just working with somebody the other day, and he was a tennis player back in college, NCAA champ, by the way. Anyways, shout out to Joey. But he was deadlifting, and he's a 180-pound guy. He's 47 or 48, my age. And he deadlifted 285 pounds. Oh he was never a weightlifter before. Wow. Yeah. And he did it well and easily. And he's laughing. He goes, is this why my back doesn't hurt anymore?
Really?
Yeah. And we kind of laughed about it because, of course, if your muscles are that strong that you can lift 300 pounds off the floor as a normal human, right? He's not training to be a power lifter. He just happened to build himself up to that level of strength, which is, I would say, top 1% probably for most men in the United States.
Yeah.
Like he's probably in the top 1% of strength because most guys can't do that. I mean, it's not that shocking when your musculoskeletal system becomes so strong and so robust that you don't have to deal with that stuff anymore. Yeah. And he's a dentist, a practicing dentist. And those guys are notorious because they're always leaned over. Oh, they're always in bad posture positions, right? Working in the, or IT people. I've got a physician who's an eye doctor, same kind of thing. We just keep you strong. All those things go away.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like learning the position, like learn how to deadlift without weight. So use a wooden stick, like learn how to do it, learn how to do a squat, learn how to do all those things and build those skills. Because if you can build that foundation of skills, your chance of getting hurt while you progress your lifts almost go to zero.
Okay.
But you have to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you could blow yourself up if you just try to go into the gym and like, I'm going to deadlift today. You just put a bunch of weight on there.
Rip your spine out.
Yeah. I think there was and you even got to be careful with like coaches because just because you're a strength coach or whatever, you have to be really careful because not a lot of people know what they're doing. I'll give you an example. I was listening to a podcast with, trying to think who it was. It was the guy from Kings and Queens.
Oh,
the comedian.
I want to say his name, Doug Heffernan, but it's I forget his real name.
It's the bigger dude.
Yeah.
He's hilarious.
Kevin James.
Yeah, that guy. So he was on this podcast and he's talking about how he hired his trainer, right? And he's naturally a strong guy. I think he even played football or something, but he's this naturally strong guy. So he's working with his trainer and the trainer puts on a bunch of weight, or puts on like 200 pounds on the bar, and he does it pretty well.
Yeah.
Right? This is him telling the story, right? So he does it pretty well. And the trainer's like, wow, that was pretty good. It's and they just started working together. So to be clear, they just started working together.
Okay.
This trainer has no idea what this guy's, capable of or what he's doing, right? And they're like, okay, well, let's put a little more on. So they put like 250 on there and he does it again. And they ended up getting up to like something like 400 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
Which is insane. If you're a guy that doesn't train and you're just showing up and you're lifting 400 pounds off the floor, that's incredibly strong.
Yeah.
But if you don't know what you're doing and you've got a terrible coach, you can blow yourself up really easily, which he did. He blew himself up because the coach just kept pushing him and pushing him and pushing them. So you have to be so careful with who you're working with. If you get the wrong person, they don't have experience in this whole process.
Yeah, because I can see that happening because you just tend to be like, well, he knows what he's talking about. So you trust him.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And those are the people that I think because CrossFit gets a bad name, and as you know, I've got a pretty extensive history in CrossFit.
Yeah.
CrossFit gets a bad name for injuries, but I think that's one of the biggest problems is people tend to push their limits above and beyond what they're capable of. And that's what creates all these orthopedic issues. It's not the training. It's most people don't know what the heck they're doing. Right? But if you can learn what the heck you're doing, it's incredibly safe.
Nice.
And I only say that because I was in the industry for many, many years, still do a fair amount of it. But I've worked with athletes and built them up to the highest of levels without injuring them.
Yeah.
The only way that you can become an Olympic weightlifter at the Olympic level and train with Team USA is if you know what you're doing, you do it well, and you progress yourself without getting hurt. Like it's the only way.
Would you consider this the barbell method CrossFit?
CrossFit uses the barbell a lot
Okay.
because of those reasons. It's just so efficient.
Okay.
You can make people really strong, right?
Yeah.
But again, you have to with such a great tool, there is some risk.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure you know what you're doing. But if you know what you're doing, forget about it. You can be incredibly strong.
So that's just telling, don't go anywhere but here.
That's right. I think it's just important, like if you're going to work with someone to, ask, how long have they been doing this?
Mm-hmm.
How many people have you worked with? How long have you worked with people?
Were you trained properly for this? Like, did you have formal training to coach people like this?
I would say yes and no. I think, I started back in 99.
Okay.
So it was, to be honest, when I went to college, I got a degree in exercise science, which I kind of laugh at. But back then,
I mean, to me, that sounds like pretty good training right there.
it was awful.
Really?
It was awful, like so bad.
Huh.
I remember like my clinicals, which is what they would do is, so this is after you go through this is my fourth year, and I went for 5 years. But my fourth or fifth year, they pair you up with professors and you have to train them.
Okay.
Right. And I remember going from machine to machine. And if you've been on those machines, you pull the pin out, you put it in the weights and you lean back. I was basically just counting reps. I didn't know shit.
Really?
I didn't know what I was doing. Right. And being on a machine, a monkey can put a person on a machine.
Yeah.
Right.
There's
very little value there. So I didn't really learn. I learned a lot outside of college, just being in the trenches and being obsessed with human movement, human performance, biomechanics. I obsess. I would read physical therapy textbooks. Biomechanics.
Biomechanics.
Yeah.
What's that?
It's how your body moves.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's optimal ways that your body moves with the most amount of stability to be able to develop the most amount of strength in the safest way possible. And if you understand biomechanics, you can build some savages, which is what I like to do.
I see those challenges on reels where it's the guys will have to pick up the really heavy cup.
Yeah.
Would you know exactly what position would be most likely to be effective?
Yeah. I mean, there are some things that are sort of innate,
mm-hmm.
right? Like when you're picking that, obviously you wouldn't hold it out here.
Sure.
Right? You want to keep it kind of close into the body, right? You wouldn't have your elbow way out here, right? There's some things that innately your body is trying to be efficient, right? But when you get into squatting and deadlifting and some more clean and jerks and snatches, when you get into some of these more complex movement patterns, that's where there's a little bit more value to really understanding biomechanics, the more complex stuff.
Yeah.
Again, there's a certain level of innate, right? We're trying, when you carry your kids, you don't carry them like this.
Yeah.
You carry them close to the body because we're trying to keep the center of mass over the middle of the foot.
Right.
Yeah. So there you go. So now we got to get you on a bar.
Okay.
We got to teach you how to deadlift, squat, press, pull up. We got to teach you the clean, jerk, and snatch.
I gotta get the
What do you think?
biomechanics to
Yeah.
jerk my snatch.
Yeah. And then keep eating good.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is sleep. You want to sabotage someone's performance? Ruin a night of sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what'd you say before? 6 to 8 hours?
Somewhere in there. 7 to 9 is usually the
9.
recommendation. It depends on the person. Yeah. So there you have it. I think we covered a lot. And I think I talked way more.
It's good. I feel very informed.
Yeah.
So I'd also trust you to be my coach.
Really? Cool. Well, we should do some stuff then.
All right.
Yeah.
I like it.
Right on. Anything else we need to talk about? I think we're good, huh?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Thanks for hanging out with us. Hopefully that was informative. I know I kind of went on a few rants there, but stick around. Next week, we'll talk about some more stuff. We might even dig a little bit deeper, because if I can get you to start doing some barbell stuff, that's going to be awesome. Then we can talk about that stuff and kind of, track your journey on this whole thing.
Yeah, you can keep track of my snatch.
Yeah. Rock on.